to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis. With me, as always, is Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Hollis. I just remembered how I wanted to say hello and forgot to look it up.
Do I do a second take here?
We might. Depends on what you think. No.
Okay.
I wanted to look up how to say it's a god-awful sad affair in Portuguese.
In Portuguese, yeah. That'd be wonderful. Well, that is bang on target for this week's film. We are following up the seafaring adventure Jaws with the Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, a 2004 film by Wes Anderson, my beloved Wes Anderson, co-written with Noah Baumbach and starring his usual cast of characters, his usual stock company, I want to call them. Bill Murray is here, Angelica Houston is here, Owen Wilson, Cate Blanchett, who I love in everything. She joins the fun, as does Jeff Goldblum, Michael Gambon. It is packed with interesting actors. And I don't always say that of films. It's a unique film. It's fun. It's about as mainstream, I think, as Wes Anderson gets in his whole oeuvre. What did you think right off the bat of The Life Aquatic?
It was the second time I was seeing it. I had very vague memories of the first time. I remember thinking I think it was the first Wes Anderson movie I ever saw. And I was like, well, that was a quirky movie.
You could have said that after any Wes Anderson film.
Yeah, but I'd never seen one. And I was like, that is very quirky. I was like, that is like, I would have thought I would see some a variation on quirky before seeing what I now consider the most quirky movie I'd ever seen.
None more quirk.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember thinking, oh, that was really fun. And I kind of felt like, oh, that was really fun and simple the first time. And then the second time, I felt like, wow, that was really fun and sad and amazing and deep and not deep and wow. Yeah, felt I had a lot to think about.
Yeah, I get that. It's got everything. It's surprisingly satisfying on many different levels. And I think it's a lot like a great album by a band that you love. The best bands, it seems to me, their music, you can just put it on while you're cleaning the house. You can put it on and dance to it. You can put on headphones and listen intently to the lyrics and get a lot out of it. Like, this film meets you on whatever level you want to meet it at. You can just be like, oh, wow, I'd love to see a spoof on a Jacques Cousteau character and just take it lightheartedly. Or you can really invest in the characters, the father-son dynamic, the kind of boyfriend-girlfriend dynamic, the weird ensemble. It'll give you whatever you want from it.
It's like a Ween song in that way. Specifically, that Mollusk record, which weirdly ties in with this. You can listen to some of the songs on that record like that. Are they deep? Like, is Ween suddenly Rush? Like, is the Mollusk the priests of the temples of Syrinx? Like,
oh wow.
Or you can just be like, Ween, fun, yay. And I know that there are people who The Life Aquatic is like their comfort movie. Is their oh, times are hard, I'm gonna put on The Life Aquatic. Oh, times are good, let's watch The Life Aquatic. It's very interchangeable for your emotional state and for your desires. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Great.
Which speaks to how much is in it. It's packed.
It really is. It totally is. And I just want to point out, I'm just going to talk about the fit a little bit here today. You are rocking a classic PBS shirt that you and I both were PBS kids. We grew up watching public television.
It's where I grew up watching the undersea adventures of Jacques Cousteau, which is why I'm wearing this shirt.
Yep, exactly right.
Required viewing in the Horowitz household.
Yep. And I am rocking a Devo shirt.
May I make the guess on why you're wearing a Devo shirt?
Please.
Because it is a group of people who all wear red hats.
It is that, But it is also because not only does Mark Mothersbaugh do the music like he did for every Wes Anderson film, but this film uses a great deal of the song Gut Feeling to great
It
effect.
is Gut Feeling in this movie, maybe, I think, my favorite, like, using popular music in a movie moment. I think it's the best.
Yeah.
It was the one that felt the rightest to me in any movie I've ever seen is Gut Feeling in The Life Aquatic. Could not agree more. So good.
It's great on many levels. It's perfect montage music, which is how it's used. It also shows them all training and doing different things, and they're all dressed the same, like Devo. And they have the
Mhm.
red hats. They're not domes, but they're hats. And they have the same
Some
outfits,
one
those
pieces
blue,
on.
yeah,
Yep, yep.
powder blue. And they all have the same Zissou Adidas, which he used to have an endorsement deal.
They knew how great the Zissou Adidas idea was because they threw in that scene with the box and everything.
Oh, it's perfect. It's
Oh,
so
so
good.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the merchandise, the
Mm-hmm.
Zissou merchandising, the Speedos. And the choice of Speedo was pretty good too. A lot of people might have said, like, no, they should have gone with a single color.
Mm-hmm.
In Italy, all the dudes wear black Speedos,
Mm-hmm.
which bled over to like my dad was a scuba diver, and all the scuba divers wore black Speedos. And my dad wore a black Speedo.
Mm.
I believe my friend's band had a record named Black Speedo. The band Steak. Yeah. Um,
Godspeedo, you black Speedo.
nice.
This film, I think it's the perfect follow-up to Jaws because that's three men obsessed with killing a shark. And in this case, this is a man obsessed with killing a shark, a jaguar shark, as it's
Yeah,
called.
the
And
infamous jaguar shark.
the infamous, I referenced Jacques Cousteau and his crew on the Calypso killing sharks in one episode that they did, and
Mhm.
how he had such, in the Disney film about Cousteau, he has such like um
Remorse.
yeah, like heartfelt remorse over it.
Yeah,
It was, it
very
really
real. Yeah.
pained him, how ignorant they were and that they saw them as mindless killers, and so you couldn't really do anything bad to a shark. But in this one, the way he feels about the shark changes throughout the film. At first, he's out to
Yeah,
kill him. Then he can only get funding if he doesn't kill him. So he's like, all right, I'll fight him, but I won't kill him. And
right.
then later in the
Secretly
end,
planning to kill him.
secretly, and then in
Yeah.
the end, he's like overwhelmed with the sight of it and what they've all
Mhm.
gone through to get there. And it's like just this beautiful moment. But if you don't buy into this film, the shark is laughable. There's special sea life created for this film. There's a crayon ponyfish, fluorescent snapper, sugar crabs, a
Mhm.
rhinestone bluefin, a wild
Mhm.
snow mongoose, and even Arctic nightlights, which are really just something they do with real projection. But it rings true because the movie is all about self invention and making your own art. And Steve like fakes scenes and he creates scenes and he
Mhm.
reshoots things a little better and he makes things up and he lies. So it's like it's a whole alternate world on two fronts.
Yeah, it works for several reasons. It works also because there's no real Life Aquatic. All the
Yeah.
Life Aquatic doesn't exist. Um, Also, you mentioned all the actual little swimming things, but there's also fake seaweed and fake bottom, and fake, but the underwater scenes are gorgeous and
Yeah.
fake. They're actually underwater, but they're underwater. It's an underwater stage.
It's movie
Um,
magic.
yeah, it's really nice. Um, and I like that there are no real animals. Just it's all everything underwater is fake, and that's beautiful. It also speaks to the fact that they're making a movie. These are guys making a movie about making a movie. So it's a movie within a movie. So it's already pretty fantastical. And now you think it's a Wes Anderson movie inside. Like Bill Steve Zissou could say, look at this seahorse. It's like being in a Wes Anderson movie. Um,
Yeah.
but you open by comparing it to Jaws, and I have to make my main Jaws comparison, which is, and this is not what I think Jaws was and what I think the Life Aquatic was. This is how Jaws felt to me and how the Life Aquatic felt to me. A very surface, like my immediate feeling upon watching it. And Jaws feels like someone said, "Hey, did you read this Peter Benchley book, Jaws? We should make a movie out of this. We should make a movie where a guy or some guy, a group of guys goes after a shark to kill it."
Yeah.
And Spielberg said, "Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll call you. I'm going to work on it. I'll call you in 6 months." Wes Anderson's movie feels like someone said to Wes, "We should make a movie about a guy and some other guys who go after this shark to kill it." And Wes Anderson said, "Cool, I'll go grab my camera."
Mm.
Wes Anderson's movie feels like kids running, like smart, good, creative kids running around with cameras making a movie. The shootouts feel like that. The sets can
Yeah.
feel like that. It's a nice feeling.
It almost feels like a production that Max Fisher is doing on stage in Rushmore. The production is very much a kind of like grown-up kids playing at something. Even the sound of the gunfire is a little cat pistol-y.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I could see like the entire movie with kids, and then they hand it to adults and say, "Do it again, but with adults." Yeah, it's really fun that way.
Yeah.
But I don't want that to imply that I think Spielberg tried really hard and Wes Anderson didn't.
There's a spontaneity to the Wes Anderson film that I think is what you're touching on. It just feels very of the moment. I think a great deal of that can be laid at the feet of Bill Murray. He has such a kind of self-conscious performance. You know, you say this a lot, like, you know, I feel like that was just ad-libbed or something. I almost felt like Bill is like, you know what, fuck that. Now let's do a take for me. And it's just filled with takes for him. Like they're all like Bill Murray doing his thing.
Yeah, I'd go even further. I'd say it feels like Bill Murray came to Wes Anderson and said, "Write a movie based entirely around me."
Yeah.
And because it's like, is Bill Murray funny and spontaneous? Yes. Is Bill Murray drunk and toxic? Yes. Is Bill Murray just pure joy? Yes. Is Bill Murray pretty damn sad? Yes. Like, this is Bill Murray's perfect movie.
Yeah. And Wes Anderson has worked with him enough to know enough aspects of his personality to put them all on parade. And what's great is Steve Zissou, like towards the end, he kind of embraces who he is. He reads the article about himself. I said those things. I did those things. He kind of takes ownership of who he is in a way he doesn't early on. Because
he could have said, "He made us look like idiots."
Yeah, Jeff Beebe.
Almost right. He could have Jeff Beebe'd it. He did the adult thing. Jeff Beebe's young. He'll learn.
Yeah.
But he did the right thing. He read it. He said, "You made me look this way," which I did those things. Because I am that way.
Think about his character. For so many years, he's been fudging the facts in his films and reshooting at a better angle with better dialogue and kind of just naming stuff when he doesn't know what it is. And
electric jellyfish.
Oh, it's great. And so he doesn't know how to turn that off when he's doing an interview or when he's kind of on a stage fielding questions at a Q&A. He's amazed when he gets pushback. He's amazed when someone calls him on his alternate facts, as they call them now. And so it's kind of nice to see his arc and how he's been through so much that he's just like, yeah, I'm kind of a dick, but I'm also this cool guy who does this, this, and this, you know? It doesn't negate the finer aspects of his personality, you know?
I wonder how much Jacques Cousteau fudged. You know, you're talking about deep sea animal information in the 70s. It's like, you could be like, "Jacques, you call these electric jellyfish. I don't see." It's like, "Don't worry, my friend. There is no internet. No one will know."
That's the beauty of it. He was the first, Dave. He did for the sea what Julia Child did for French cuisine. She like, you know,
no, seriously.
Just brought it into your living room, demystified it, and sold you these things that you could not get anywhere else. It wasn't like he had imitators. You
I know
know,
that
is
better. I know that better than anyone. My dad took underwater movies when I was a kid. My
wow.
dad had a collection of underwater movies already when I was movies he took underwater. And someone might say, I think you're mistaken, as there was no way to take underwater movies at that time unless you were Jacques Cousteau.
Mm,
My dad still has a plexiglass tube with a plexiglass front and plexiglass back and two handles on the side that were held on with little pieces of metal. And I believe it was like wooden pieces of dowel for the handles.
wow. That's old.
And he had little metal things that went through rubber grommets in, and he would use it to push the record and stop button on his little Nikon film camera that he had encased in plexiglass so that he could take underwater movies because there was no other way than to buy like the $10,000 thing that Jacques Cousteau uses.
Wow. Oh
So,
my God.
and then his friend said, "Can you make one of those for me?" And he did. And then other friend said, "Could you make one of those for this camera?" And he did. And then he quickly got into making things out of plastics and became a plastics manufacturer.
Wow. Well,
See, there's two ways
apparently,
those things can go.
yeah. Apparently, Jacques Cousteau did have competition, but they were
Yeah.
all in your family or known by your family. um, wow. I didn't know any of this stuff about your dad. Is there any chance your
Yeah.
dad was the Zodiac killer? Because
There's,
you're
you know what?
unloading like different facts. He's in the service. He was underwater.
I'm letting these things leak out
Yeah.
slowly. Hey, don't spoil the Zodiac.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
So Steve Zissou is obviously based on Jacques Cousteau. His boat was
Finally, a movie with nice beanies. Go ahead.
finally his boat was called the Calypso. Zissou's boat is called the Belafonte,
Get
which
it?
yeah, is so
I love
good.
it.
Harry
It's so
Belafonte, the
good.
great Calypso singer. It makes fun of the different aspects of Cousteau's ship, which for the time was state of the art, and different people performing different tasks. The Belafonte has a Swedish masseuse on staff.
Mm. And
Um,
what is the room in the ship, the cabin, I should say, in the ship with the highest tech equipment?
would that be the
It's the
kitchen?
kitchen, your kitchen. He points out, he's like, this is probably where our technology reaches its pinnacle here in the kitchen of the of the
I love it.
Belafonte.
I love it.
Yeah,
Just one last thing on Cousteau,
I'm sure not the last thing on
and not the
Cousteau, but
last
go ahead.
thing, but Wes Anderson must have been like obsessed with him as a kid or something, because I remember seeing a Jacques Cousteau photograph framed and like books in every Wes
Oh,
Anderson
really?
film from Bottle
Awesome.
Rocket on. There was like a picture in Bottle Rocket, and in Rushmore, Max Fisher checks out a Cousteau book from the library that features prominently. So like this must have been wish fulfillment on Wes's
It's
part.
such an I don't know. It's almost like you can ask yourself, like, is Jacques Cousteau real? Like, I'm remembering him, but it feels like something that's so 70s, it might not be real. I put him
Yeah,
in sort of a similar camp as Evil Knievel. It's like, was that really something going on when it's like, yeah,
yeah,
to stunt riding, like oceanography, Jacques
absolutely,
Cousteau, stunt riding,
absolutely.
Evil Knievel. There's a look, there's a personality. It used to be that there was one person in charge of each thing. Who's baseball? Reggie Jackson. Who's
Yeah,
oceanography? Jacques Cousteau. Who's stunt driving? Evil Knievel.
and
Like,
there's a mythic aspect to all of them. I'd throw Bigfoot in
mhm.
there. The
Yeah, you're
70s,
right.
the 70s was a wonderfully wacky potpourri of all of these kind of like iconic yet weird characters. There was always that one character, and then there were a bunch of like lesser lights
Mhm.
that emerged after the fact. But there was only one Jacques Cousteau.
Like, name another oceanographer from back then, or from any time, really.
Yeah.
You can't. I was a little kid. Actually, forget a little kid. To this day, if I snorkel or anything like that, as I move along the coral looking for things, my head is going, eel in the inky blackness of the sea. Every time I am narrating whatever I see with a French accent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always.
We meet his crew, and it's so wonderful. There's,
Mm.
Willem Dafoe and all these, Sal George, all these different guys. Sal George is the security guy. His name is like Pele, I believe, in it,
Pele
playing right
dos
up.
Santos. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
playing, of
believe that
course, the Brazilian.
Pele soccer. Pele
Mhm.
is the mythic
He is that one,
representer
yeah,
of soccer.
right.
I believe he played for a team once called like the Dos Santos or something like that. So it's like Pele dos Santos, and one and yet another like it's like Pele, get it? Belafonte, get it? There's so many little references that are, and Klaus's last name is Daimler, which
Mm.
makes me think he may have left his Mercedes family because Daimler is a Daimler Benz.
Oh, okay. Wow,
Daimler,
that's
I
deep.
believe, was the founder of Mercedes Benz, which later
Mm,
became Mercedes Benz, but it was Daimler
mhm.
Benz for a long time. And I like to think that Klaus, that father, never loved him, the Daimler father.
Well, his dad was a
So
Nazi,
possibly, but
probably.
he found a father in Steve Zissou.
One last thing on Pele. He is the safety officer. And how are we introduced to him? He's throwing a stick of dynamite overboard. It's already flaming. They've clearly
Right.
staged it. And he waits and then he throws it. And if Steve didn't give him the go ahead to throw it, he probably would have been exploded by it because
Right,
his crew
right.
is so loyal. There's also the cameraman, who is this very striking Indian gentleman who's been in a number of films with Wes Anderson. He's got a long beard and a turban.
And the
And
perfect name, Vikram.
yeah, Vikram Ray. And
Mm.
my favorite quote, maybe in the whole thing, is "Born on the Ganges." Like, that's just, it's a descriptor, but it's also, he knew it was dramatic the way he drops it. And
Yeah.
there's a physicist on board, Vladimir Wolodarsky, and it's the road manager from Almost Famous.
Oh, okay. I gotta look
Um,
that up. I didn't make that connection.
what's funny is that they're all there for different reasons. A lot of them are just for comedic effect, but then there's Klaus, who is like, I believe when they started, they thought Klaus would be younger. He'd be about Ned's age, so that there would be more of a competition between them. But then the
Mhm.
idea of casting Willem Dafoe, who is like Steve's age, but still thinks of Steve as a father, it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
funnier to them, and so they went with it.
yeah. I'm so
um,
glad that they went with Defoe because you watch this movie again and watch Defoe enjoy himself.
yeah,
Yeah, he loves making this movie.
I
You
think
can tell.
I think anyone like Willem Dafoe, someone who has been in enough stuff and starred in enough films to be comfortable with his own celebrity and his own status, it must be nice to just be part of an ensemble once in a while and just join in on the fun and
Yeah.
just kind of set the ball for the lead to spike it every once in a while, less pressure, and you're in this really cool film.
Yeah, and you're this huge guy and you're this respected actor already, and yet Wes Anderson doesn't have to tiptoe around you. He doesn't have to think twice before asking you to do something. You just know that Wes Anderson is like, "Can you?" He's like, "Absolutely, I can't wait to do that. I can't wait. That's ridiculous, and I can't wait to do it."
Right.
I also enjoy. It might be the same woman who says that Steve Zissou has brought them on an illegal mission, suicide mission.
The script
Uh,
girl?
yeah. Is she the one that's topless in like 2 or 3 scenes?
She is.
So perfect, of like Italy and France, and it's like, "Oh, why would you notice that? That's so crass."
Yeah.
Like, someone might be like, "That's weird that they keep showing that girl topless," but if you are familiar with, like, the whole Euro situation in the '70s, it's not
Right.
weird at all.
But also, there's a few jokes attached to it, obviously. Like, he's introducing the entire crew, and they get to her, and she's there topless in a Speedo like the rest of them. And he goes, "Script girl."
Right,
And
yeah.
a script girl on a documentary. Like,
Mhm.
there is no script. He makes it up as he goes along. So it's like, clearly we wanted her here to be topless.
I may be an oceanographer, but I'm still French and I want a couple of topless girls around. Yeah.
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
see that he tries to make a play for Kate Blanchett's character, Jane Winslet Richardson,
Yeah.
who is
Jane.
pregnant, Jane,
Hmm.
and her character is very much Jane Goodall. She's dressed
Jane.
exactly like
Yeah.
her, and
Perfect.
the hair
Perfect.
is back, and
Pulled
yeah,
back. Yeah. The moves he makes on her, what happens before those moves is him saying to Klaus, "This one's mine." Uh,
yeah, yeah,
hands off, thereby letting us know that any woman that comes within 15 feet of them gets hit on, and they
right.
expect to be successful.
And we saw Steve run into an ex of his, this gorgeous black woman, at the
Oh, in a
party
mirror ball
early
dress.
on.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
pretty awesome. Yeah.
And she doesn't want anything to do with him because he burnt that bridge like he does so many others. Even his wife and
Mhm.
he, Angelica Houston, as Eleanor Zissou, are having problems. But one last thing about the Jane Goodall. So she's dressed as Jane Goodall. And what Jane Goodall does is she goes to wild animals and she reports on how they live and how they act in the wild.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah,
pretty much what
mainly great apes. Yeah.
yeah, and that's pretty much what she's doing is she's observing Steve Zissou like he's a great
Yeah.
ape and putting him
Yeah.
under the magnifying glass. And it's going to bring the story of him in this bizarre little
Troop
tribe
of
of his
apes. Yeah.
troop of apes back
Yeah.
to the world, hairless apes back to the world. So that's wonderful, I think.
He pulls a gun on her in the first 1 minute of the interview,
Great. It's
which
great.
you don't see that coming. That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
And that
It
was
was.
ad-libbed.
Oh yeah.
The gun was ad-libbed. It was
Part of their
just
uniform is a Glock.
yeah.
Everybody gets one. The interns share one.
Do the interns get Glocks? They share one.
They share one. Yeah.
The Ned character, I I think it's a really interesting performance that Owen Wilson turns in. I can't think of it because he's got an identifiable comedic persona in every other film, you know, the quote unquote
Mhm.
butterscotch stallion, which drives
Mm.
my wife crazy. Emily's like, don't ever call him that in front of me
Did you
again.
make that up?
No, I didn't. That was actually
Oh,
someone called him that in something and I wouldn't let it
ah.
go. I just kept
Tell
it.
me that person's name, and I will send money
Yeah, yeah. It was in
to their
some
account.
magazine or something, but
That
I
is
just love
damn.
it.
That
Isn't
is
that great?
damn good. That is damn good.
He plays Ned Plimpton, and I like to think the Plimpton is from George Plimpton. It's kind of
I do
a
too.
classic. His
Didn't
mother,
Plimpton used to go out and try things? Didn't he like try being a football player and try being this and try being that?
yeah, he did a book, Paper Lion, I think it was called, and he was in the Detroit Lions, and he
Yeah.
played a quarterback, and he almost got
Uh-huh.
his life handed to him.
Right.
Yeah,
But here's Ned Plimpton, currently a pilot, which is
Mhm.
doing something, and then
Air
heading out to the
Kentucky.
ocean. Yeah, yeah, Air Kentucky. Not familiar, not familiar with that outfit.
Yeah, I don't know them. I don't
I'll
know
tell
that
you,
one.
I, I do love that they came to his funeral, though. A couple of Air Kentucky guys like
Yeah, it's a
made the
nice
trip.
touch.
Yeah, it was a nice touch.
Ned's
Now,
mother died about a month earlier, and both Ned and Steve know and have known since Ned was born, we discover, that he might be Steve's son, that Ned
the
might be.
timing points to it. Yeah.
The timing points to it. And after Ned and Steve talk for the first time, when he introduces himself, he needs to get some air. And he travels throughout the ship to the bow of the ship. And it's one of only 2 times, I think, that we hear an actual Bowie song other than a Sal cover version, and it's Life on Mars. And that's
Mm.
brilliantly used. The other is Queen Bitch during the closing credits, which is
Also
fantastic.
brilliantly used. Yeah.
Really, Wes Anderson has always been so good about using music, but it helps to dramatize the kind of internal turmoil of his mind as he's walking.
It really assisted the movie in doing that. But at the same time, I feel like Wes Anderson helped me appreciate Bowie songs, particular songs, a little more. It
Mhm.
elevated the song for me. I was like, huh, I never realized how theatrical Life on Mars is.
Oh God,
It's
yes.
it's bum 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 bum. It's very theater.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's got Rick Wakeman on piano. Like,
Okay.
talk about, prog god. So it's like it's
Mhm.
very orchestral, you know.
Yeah, and, and I knew it mentioned Silver Screen and Mickey Mouse and but
Hmm.
Wes Anderson sort of unlocked it for me.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I went, "Oh, that's why that song feels like that, because it's a movie. The song is a movie." Um,
Right.
yeah, it's amazing. That front of the boat that he goes up to, is that the pulpit?
That sounds right. Yeah, where Quint is
I learned
in
that from,
Jaws.
researching, Jaws.
So it's such an interesting relationship between Ned and Steve, and it changes at various points throughout. And, Steve is a very mercurial character, so that isn't strange. But Steve does to Ned what he does to everything. He uses him. He's just fodder for the next scene. From Ned's first question on the beach at night, all the way to him almost drowning, people are filming and he's using Ned, and he won't even let him call him dad on camera. He comes up with, how about Stevesy? And then later, Papa Stevesy or whatever, Papa Steve. At no point does he let Ned in, really, truly, until Ned is passed.
Until it's too late, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which also, since we're talking about the fact that Ned dies in his arms, that may be part of why, how you were saying, like, I can watch it in so many different frames of mind. I can watch it in so many ways. Um, like, I feel like if this movie wasn't goofy, it would be somewhat devastating.
It
Like,
needed to counterbalance the
it would be
devastation.
hard. It would be hard to watch this sadness without the fun that happens around it.
Yeah.
Ned's death is rough, and the chopper's going down, and they show the feet and the water getting closer, and you don't know if it's going to be a funny Life Aquatic Zissou crash or if it's
Right.
going to be something bad. And then there's flash, 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 flash of water, light, and one of the flashes is red,
Yep.
like blood. And I
Yep.
think that's when you go, "Oh no, something bad's going to happen."
Yeah. The
Um,
quick the quick cut editing Wes does there during the helicopter crash
oh,
reminded me so much of the editing he did in the suicide scene in the Royal Tenenbaums. It's very much that kind of like flashing kind of cuts, and then there's a color, either black or red in this case. And
mm,
the preamble to that is Zissou himself saying something like, "This is going to be bad," or "This is going to hurt," something beforehand.
yeah.
And he's talking to the audience as much as he's talking to Ned, and even before that, when they're going up, there's kind of a resolute thing. He wants, Ned is driving that bus. Ned is the one who's like, let's go up in that whirlybird and see if we can see that jaguar shark. I bet we can see him from 110 feet in the air or whatever. And so he brings him up, and 30th Century Man by Scott Walker starts playing, which is nice. And you don't hear that often. And then during the death of Ned, we hear one of my top 10 groups of the 60s, the
The
Zombies,
zombies,
with
yeah, I
The
know
Way I
exactly. Yeah.
Feel Inside. And like 3 or 4 of the Zombies, when they were kids, they were in like a choir at church. So when they blend their voices, they still have that beautiful choral quality. So
Oh,
it's beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time.
yeah, I mean, it works in the film, holy cow.
There's a couple of things I just want to call out because there's no natural way to get to them. On the Belafonte, at one point, there's a Steve Zissou pinball machine. Did you see it?
Mm. It's in the same family. It's in the same family as the Adidas. He got a deal with Rawlings, and Rawlings made a Steve Zissou pinball
Yeah.
machine
And,
right next to the Evil Knievel pinball machine.
right. And the Kiss pinball machine. Yeah, on the one hand, it's a quirky thing that they want to get a laugh from the audience. But more to the point, it's a narrative thing. And it tells the story of just how popular he once was. You
Mm,
remember in the 70s when someone was popular, they merchandised everything.
yeah, yeah.
You could get keychains and like pinball machines and
Soap on a rope.
mirrors, soap on a rope. Yeah.
I'm
It,
not
it,
even kidding.
yeah. So that's genius.
Also,
Also,
pinball machine on a boat, amazing
amazing.
boat because boats rock back and forth, and
They
it would
do, and that
change
affects.
the gameplay incredibly. Maybe for
Yeah,
the better. Who knows? Yeah.
right. You talked about how devastating the Ned death is. It's a tribute to this film that, you can view this film overall as a comedy with dramatic elements, where it also can sustain not just the death of Ned, but the beating up of Ned and the entire pirates taking the ship scene. That
Mhm.
whole sequence, the way that they kidnapped the company stooge, played by Bud Cort,
Oh, so good.
from one of my top 10 films of all time, Harold and Maude. Uh, it's amazing. And then Zissou taking his ship back and shooting to search and destroy by the Stooges.
With a gun that had like 80 bullets in it.
Right, never has to reload. Well, he warned them of a major shitstorm if they don't get off this ship.
Yeah. That intern takes the machete in the shoulder.
Yeah,
But there's some real blood and pain in those scenes. I mean, seeing Ned laying there bloody and unconscious, that's upsetting. There is a scene where several of them are blindfolded and facing the wall of the boat, and someone points a shotgun to the back of the heads of one of the interns, and Zissou puts his hand between the barrel of the gun and the woman's head or a person's head and says, "Don't point your gun at them. That's an unpaid intern,"
yeah,
which is funny, but also putting your hand in front of a shotgun when a person has his finger on the trigger, that's scary stuff.
yeah,
Steve Zissou is very that whole scene makes me feel like, okay, this scene is happening as told by Steve Zissou.
yeah. It's a creation of Steve Zissou, this entire
Yeah,
thing.
right. Like I have a feeling that it didn't happen this way. Like what more likely happened is an extremely nice pleasure craft yacht came by, and the pirates all just left to go
Hmm.
after that extremely rich boat. Like
Right.
something happened in his favor, and he tells it as a shootout. The fact that he gets two shootout victories in this movie,
Yeah.
he's an
He even
oceanographer.
he even says to Jane at one point, "Be careful how you write this, cubby," or whatever. Like,
Mm,
be kind when you write this, or don't, and it's like, are you serious? We got shit to worry about. Like, he's worried
mm.
about how he's perceived, whether it's the Explorers Club, it really hurts when people laugh at you, or whether it's pirates, or whether it's Eleanor's ex-husband, or whether it's Jane writing her article. He doesn't want to look ridiculous.
Don't make me look bad.
Talk about how brutal things are. Don't forget how all of this started. His best friend and companion, Esteban, was chewed in half
Right.
by the jaguar shark.
He was swallowed,
No, he was chewed up,
chewed,
didn't he?
swallowed whole, chewed.
Is he dead?
Like so much worse, so much worse. Like the headlines and like things are great. Swallowed whole is supposed to be scary.
Right.
Chewed is so much scarier.
Yeah, it's bad. Um,
Chewed. Love that line.
it's good.
I want to mention the submarine, formerly Jacqueline, now what is it, Deep Star or Deep Space? I forget. But it reminded me of the Alvin, which was my favorite submersible growing up, which is a little red and white submersible. It looked about the same size. It was an oceanographic, like Woods Hole, very serious science craft called the Alvin. I wrote a paper on it in like third grade.
Where did you learn about it?
From watching documentaries and stuff, and
Oh, okay.
just growing up, watching Jacques Cousteau, and I wouldn't doubt if the Alvin shows up in one of the Jacques Cousteau films. It was the most famous submersible. It was the Evil Knievel of submersibles. It was even red and white.
Oh,
And so I wrote like a little kid paper on it when I was a little kid, and then I wrote a college paper on it in college. It was built in like '64, and it's still in service.
oh, that's
And
nice.
I would say it's the most famous submersible, but the Trieste is also extremely
Mm.
famous. I believe that's the one that maybe investigated the Marianas Trench or something. And the reason I remember the Trieste is because I don't know the guy's first name, but his last name was Picard. The pilot of the Trieste was
Oh,
Picard.
that's got to be
And
where
I
they take it.
and that's gotta be, which I love. That is where the Star Trek: The Next Generation got Jean-Luc Picard from.
Yeah,
Because the next, after you explore the ocean, you explore space, inner
right,
world, outer world.
right.
And then the third most famous submersible got famous the hard way. That would be the Titan.
Rest in
You
peace.
know, the Alvin has been in service since '64 and is still in service because it's run by scientists.
Mm,
The Trieste never had an. I think it was eventually decommissioned. Um,
yeah.
the Titan imploded. Why? Because it's the submersible of tech bros. If you're going to get in a submersible, folks, check with Woods Hole. See what those guys think of it.
Mm.
Don't mess around with tech bros.
Science will save your life.
Yes, but he had a great submersible, and it played well. In the it had nice wide windows where
I
they
love
got to
that.
do his.
I love that scene. And what's great about that scene is after everything, when we open, Zissou is kind of a joke. Everyone who is in that submersible with him at one time or another took a pot shot at him. No one truly believed there was a jaguar shark. Even Steve himself said, I said the first two words that came into my mind,
Mhm.
but he had crazy eyes at the time, so he didn't really see him. And he was traumatized, and people were like, oh, he lost his friend. Maybe it's out there, maybe it's not. But when they all see him, it's so vindicating for his character. And they know what he's gone through, and he lost his friend to him, and he lost his son probably to
Mhm.
him, that everyone reaches out and puts their arm on his shoulder. It's such a
Yeah, it's really
lovely
nice.
moment to leave us with as far as their relationships to Zissou. I really love that.
Comic book-esque, like, everyone's there, like, shoved in this, and you can see all their faces, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's like a last frame in a or near to
Mm.
the end frame in a comic book. The Bond company
I love
stooge,
that he's
all the
there. He joins the
he's
circus, Dave.
that's really it. He joins the circus. He
Uh,
he first he watches them, then he lies for them.
And later, he's sitting in the kitchen drinking coffee. And Jeff
Goldblum,
Goldblum's character, Alistair Hennessy, comes over and he's
perfect.
like, how'd you get my espresso maker? And Bud Corder's like, we stole it. Like, he's one of the crew. And he's like, matter of factly, like,
He's like,
yeah, we
"We're
fucking,
outlaw. We're ocean outlaws. We're practically
yeah.
pirates."
I,
Yeah.
I want to ask a final question about Ned from a storytelling point of view, and keeping in mind that this film is comfort food for some people. Did Ned have to die?
I thought about the good guys.
Oh yeah, the nice guys.
I
Mm.
was like, "This might be a scene that was unnecessary."
Tell folks who didn't watch that episode my problem with the nice guys.
Hollis fawns over this movie for an entire episode of Pop Culture Graveyard, and then at the
Yeah,
end calls it out for having an unnecessary killing of a character that he thinks the movie did not benefit from and actually suffered from.
yeah.
In this case, I would say that the movie did not suffer from it. I just don't know if it needed it. Who am I to judge?
No, he's a master storyteller, Wes
Yeah,
Anderson, and
it's a
that's
tough call, though. I
I
mean,
bet it was Baumbach that wrote it. I
it's a
bet
good
that
possibility.
motherfucker. He loves getting in the dirt, man. He loves getting into the negative stuff.
I mean, it
Um,
did it did get that Kentucky flight crew onto the boat, which was very nice. You
mm.
got that great scene of the coffin floating past Eleanor Zissou.
Yeah, but
Uh,
I'll tell you something, Dave. In each film, as an audience member, you want to identify with one character. You want to jump into one character, or you want to like latch on to one character and enjoy the ride of the film through them. And Ned's that character. He really is. I don't care who you are, just to be like, wow, that would be the way to experience Steve Zissou and to be on that boat and to be part of the crew. And it's almost Wiley Wiggins joining the cool kids. It's got that
mm,
kind of those rites of passage, and everything goes well. And then some things don't go well, but then they are rescued. And then in the end, there's kind of an understanding. And then they kill him. Like, that would be a horrible ending to Dazed and Confused. Yeah, no, he bought a six pack, but then O'Bannon came back and ran over him.
hit
Like,
him with a bat. Yeah.
yeah,
Are you aware that when they go dancing to Queen, not that, yeah, walking dance, when they go walk dancing down the street on the water back to the boat at the end of the film to Queen Bitch. You know, that part where they're all
Yeah,
jumping
the
in
credit
one by one?
sequence.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
When they get to the boat, there's a guy in a pilot's uniform at the very top of the boat smoking a pipe.
I did see that. That's a nice
Appar
little homage.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you could say that that scene is not entirely real, like, Ned's not really there, obviously.
I think that could be like Steve's eternal memory of Ned. Remember, they had their first meaningful talk up on the top of the ship while they shared a joint. Maybe in Steve's mind, Ned is now looking down on their adventures as a sort of guardian angel. Remember, he stepped in to save them when he was alive with an influx of cash, so he's kind of their patron saint. Ned's also a part of the flag now that flies atop the ship up there. And if you notice, Ned never moves. He's immobile, almost like a figurehead you normally see out on the bow or the prow of the boat. So I think Steve's good memories of Ned remain atop the ship, and that's where his spirit is.
I just think it's like some kind of literary tool or something where because the
Mm,
whole group is together, but he is a silhouetted figure on the top of the boat.
almost
He's
watching over them.
Yeah, that type of thing, or like he
Yeah,
is now the ghost captain of the boat.
right.
Like it's a weird thing like that. Uh,
I could even
but
see Steve renaming the boat in Ned's honor somehow, the
but
Kingsley.
he's yeah, that's the thing though. He would name it the Kingsley and not the Plimpton or the
Right,
Ned.
but he would have named him Kingsley, but to him, he would like, and he's all ego.
But he would not have like been like in this one case. I'm gonna give it. He'd be like, no, I'm still gonna go with my idea.
Right, right.
Is our George Draculius anyway connected to this film?
That's the same guy. The
Um,
same guy that was name checked by the Beastie Boys, who used to be a business associate of theirs. Rick Rubin's former protege. Yeah, he's a producer, as is Guy Osiris. So they had a Osiris Draculius Presents at the
mm,
beginning of the film were shown at adventure number 12, the Jaguar Shark. We've mentioned him before, Dave and I have, because we're big Beasties fans. And
Yeah,
he
when
was
did Jaculius come up before? Because I only knew him as someone the Beastie Boys bought a hot dog from,
right.
and then it
Um,
turned out he did the music, but he's done the music for several things. But he did the music
yeah.
for something that had a
Yeah.
lot of good music. Zodiac.
Zodiac is where we got him, right. Good.
Hmm.
Yep, exactly.
What do you got for taglines?
I can't find a tagline. You know what? I like it better that way. He doesn't really do taglines. I'll tell you something though. There are some like fan posters for this movie. I'm gonna have
Oh
to
yeah, I
put
gotta
a
look
few
into
up
that.
on YouTube.
Yeah, please do.
So good. one one fan poster at the top. It says, "Let's finish the job," and then under it, "Urgent, experienced seaman needed." This is great. In closing, Dave, I think this was a great follow up to Jaws. And I don't know, I this is a film that's really hard to categorize. I'd be hard pressed to even know whether to put it in a comedy or a dramatic thing.
Mhm.
I'd probably, and action comedy doesn't fit either because it's not Midnight Run. It's not 48 hours. It's
Yeah, it's nice that way. I mean, it's that thing where I used to be like, especially when I was younger and didn't try so hard, I was like, Pink Floyd? Oh, uncategorizable. Like,
hmm,
it's just not categorized. It's obviously not rock. It's obviously not disco. It's obviously not classical. It's I would say that I could do that with this movie and just say it's uncategorizable. Um,
which is high praise.
I think that's high praise. Yeah. And the fact that it works and I've said many times, or a few times, I think I've said a few times that I like people acting in small spaces, and there was a lot of that in this. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, small, real spaces. I learned to dislike a lot of like blue screen stuff and everything, and that's one of the great things. As hokey or quirky or fake any Wes Anderson stuff might look, at least it's real. At least it's real.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, there's a great irony to Wes Anderson's work where in his films he almost creates a dollhouse and then plays with the actors as if they're dolls.
That's
And then
perfect. I love that.
and then the packaging, he like ties it all up in a bow with the credits and the fonts and everything he uses. You know, it's almost like this bizarre cinematic box of chocolates that he gives to audiences.
It's like that ties into what I said. It feels like kids running around making a movie. It feels like kids playing. That dollhouse thing is perfect because those dollhouses open up, and then you've got this bifurcated boat that he used to make this.
The cross section of the Calypso, kind of.
Yeah,
Belafonte. I should.
The Belafonte. I still love that.
It's so good. All right, that's it. Let's finish the job. Experienced seaman needed.
You're going to end on that?
Do
we know? Do you have a thought? I mean, nothing wrong with talking about it here. Do you have any thoughts on what our line might be?
Ooh,
I don't.
You've got crazy eyes, Steve. I don't know.
That's funny. Everyone who's listening knows, and we don't.
Yeah.
See, that's how time works. It's crazy.
See you on dry land.
Bring your Speedo.
Hollis and Dave would like to thank you for enjoying Pop Culture Graveyard.